Welcome back to the news from Kazakhstan. I'm Askar Shirliyev with the latest. Here are the headlines. The first case of polio is registered in Kazakhstan. The patient is a 7-year-old boy from Saragash. Russian specialists claim former health minister Jaksalik Doskaliyev never had a stroke. A car of the deputy head of the public union miners' family exploded in Shakhtinsk. The first in 15 years case of polio is registered in the south of Kazakhstan. A special team from the Public Health Authority was sent to Shymkent to study the situation in the field. According to the chief sanitary official Kines Ospanov, the 7-year-old boy was likely infected while swimming in a river. Additional vaccination of about 200,000 children of ages 6 to 15 is announced in the region due to emergency. The infected 7-year-old boy from Saragash was hospitalized to an area hospital on October 8th with symptoms of flaccid paralysis. Lab studies confirmed the polio diagnosis. This highly infectious disease is caused by infection of children's spinal cord gray matter with poliovirus. The patient received the necessary course of therapy in the city infectious disease hospital. According to the health ministry, 2 other children had contacts with the patient. They, however, have been vaccinated and are currently fine. This infection likely happened through water. I cannot confirm it with absolute certainty, but we know that the child did swim in the dirty river. A research in Moscow showed that this is not a domestic virus. Southern Kazakhstan and the Saragash in particular are experiencing an acute shortage of water. Often villages resort to using water from ditches, which inevitably leads to the spread of many infectious diseases. The problem with drinking water is quite topical for the most villages in Kazakhstan. The issue becomes apparent even just a few kilometers from Almaty. The family of Ayjamal Kulsharova lives in the village of Ulzhan, 2 kilometers from the city. The settlement has no water supply and every day her husband or sons have to go to the city to get water. We bring water from the city 2 kilometers away using any empty containers we can find. This water is barely enough for cooking and some laundering. The problems with drinking water were already raised at the government level before, when in 2002 the state adopted the drinking water program. The authorities decided that in 8 years every citizen of the country will have the water access. For these purposes, over $1 billion was allocated from the budget, including over $950 million to solve the problem in the cities. However, the state program has yet to meet expectations. Within the period, the wear of the rural settlements networks improved by only 2%. And there are still about 140 broken water mains. 83,000 people still have no access to water. All the while, it is not clear where the allocated $2 billion ended up. The committee fails to clarify the situation, only accusing the local governments of negligence. Still hopeful officials, however, have solemnly approved the new project Drinking Water 2010-2020. More assets are allocated from the state budget to the local governments, and we believe that by 2020 every Kazakh settlement will be supplied with drinking water. However, while officials are trying to right their wrongs, the population continues to lay water pipes independently without any state support. Water in Kazakhstan is not only social but also a political issue. During the International Conference on the Water Resources Management of the Ili-Balkhash Basin, experts reached the conclusion that water could become a catalyst of a future conflict between the countries of the Central Asia, Russia and China. Kazakhstan already experiences water shortage due to the management issues in the neighboring China. The water issue in Central Asia was reviewed from the perspective of economics, environmental protection and national security in the region. Over 3 million people live in the Ili-Balkhash Basin. The misuse of water resources and the disastrous state of the irrigation systems, unmaintained for more than 20 years, poses concerns to specialists from around the world, including representatives of the OSCE and the European Union. The effective resource management is very important for the OSCE because the issues of water allocation, in our opinion, influence the stability at the national and regional levels. 70% of Kazakhstan's water resources originate in China. Each year, the neighbors are increasing the water consumption rates, which worry Kazakh specialists. The numerous calls for a dialogue never produced any results. Specialists are afraid of China's development pace and talk of a possible environmental disaster. China is developing very rapidly while expanding their irrigation areas, which consumes the most of the water resources. It is quite realistic for the consequences to be quite unpleasant if China will not take into account the interests of Kazakhstan, like the proper treatment of the Lake Balkhash. The careless use of water resources in Kazakhstan is the second cause of water deficit in the region. Irrigation systems are mainly embedded in earthen channels with a lot of water simply wasted. Also, water recycling is almost never used. Farmers can only dream of new methods and technologies. For example, equipment worth over $2,000 is needed to provide 1 hectare of land with drip irrigation. The local methods are also not used. The domestic drop irrigation system costs cheaper and is of better quality compared to the foreign ones. We, however, cannot introduce it because there is no funding as usual. Representatives of the Water Committee claimed that by 2013 all reservoirs will be restored and irrigation systems put in order. Kazakh specialists are developing a new system for the use of water resources. However, experts say that without the proper attention and direct involvement of the Chinese side, all these attempts are pointless. The former health minister Jaksalik Duskaliyev never had a stroke, claimed representatives of the General Prosecutor's Office. This was confirmed by Russian specialists invited specifically to diagnose the official. The team of scientists concluded that there is no objective evidence to support the previous finding of the cardiovascular performance failure, as was indicated in Duskaliyev's medical history. The signs of a stroke are absent as well. The Commission has issued a new diagnosis, the cerebral vascular inefficiency. Representatives of the General Prosecutor's Office claimed that the disease doesn't lead to any speech impediments and allows the patient to answer questions. Previously, the financial police accused Duskaliyev of feigning his illness to avoid criminal responsibility for a number of corruption crimes. The General Prosecutor's Office decided to finally dot the I's and find out exactly what is Jaksalik Duskaliyev's illness after all. To do so, they invited Russian professors who concluded that the former minister does have a disorder of the vascular activity of the brain. In other words, the illness is indeed there, but it is likely there never was the previously diagnosed acute stroke. We have their conclusion that there is no objective evidence to support the claim of the cardiovascular performance failure, as was indicated in Duskaliyev's medical history. Since the feigning of a stroke is now proved, the members of the General Prosecution Office will now begin fully working on the case. Doctors say that the ex-minister is adequate and can answer questions, which indicates that nothing will prevent him from giving testimonies on the charges as soon as he will be released from the hospital in the nearest future. We are not saying that everything is fine, but the issue in question is acute stroke. No one is questioning the fact of an illness. It is quite possible. The investigation team will take further actions under the criminal procedural legislation of Kazakhstan. Now, in addition to corruption and abuse of power, Duskaliyev is charged with the feigning of an acute stroke. The further development of the story will depend on the Attorney General, while observers agree that in this situation it will be extremely hard to defuse the case. Also on Monday, the spokesman for the Attorney General, Jandos Umiraliyev, reported that the head of his organization, Kairat Mami, and the Vice Prime Minister, Umirzak Shukeyev, were not dismissed from their positions. Messages circulated by the internet publications are called nothing but rumors. The information portal Respublika spread the news that the General Prosecutor and the Vice Prime Minister of Kazakhstan were placed under home arrest and dismissed from their posts. On Monday, however, representatives of the Attorney General reported that Kairat Mami is at his workplace every day and was never suspended. The internet portal Respublika reported that the General Prosecutor Kairat Mami and the Vice Prime Minister Umirzak Shukeyev were removed from their office and placed under home arrest. The information came from a source within the government of Kazakhstan. It is worth noting that the rumors of Shukeyev's dismissal appeared immediately after the Security Council meeting with the President Nazarbayev at the end of last week. The first time ever the meeting was conducted with the absence of the Vice Prime Minister, which was noticed by the press. Additionally, several mass media outlets reported that Nazarbayev harshly criticized the chairman of the Fund Samruk-Kazana Kairat Kelimbetov. This information, however, was refuted by the fund's press service. Fund Samruk-Kazana could end up without its old-time leader Kairat Kelimbetov. On October 8th, Kazakh mass media reported that President Nazarbayev harshly criticized Kelimbetov during the last meeting of the Security Council. The information was later proved by several sources inside the government, although representatives of the fund still deny it. As far as I know, the president never said he was disappointed, as was claimed by mass media. Interestingly, experts have been talking about the precarious situation of the fund's head for quite some time. Now, when it is obvious that no one is satisfied with the fund's work and it is apparent that the appetite for the fund is growing, I believe that there is a risk of Kilimbetov losing his patronage. Economist of the Political Decisions Institute Galina Nakhmanova says that the president's dissatisfaction is due to Samruk-Kazyna not coping with its obligations. The biggest problem is the fund's inefficient management. The slow decision-making or execution is at play here, and the state represented by the president is obviously looking for a better efficiency. Economist Makhbat Spanov believes Kilimbetov should have been criticized much sooner. He says that the fund's head never coped with his direct responsibilities of the leader. I was done within the government by a department of 40 people, now compared to about 50,000 people working in the same directions. The efficiency is obviously incomparable. From this perspective, the fund needs to be abolished. At the same time, Spanov notes that he has been surprised by the fund's ineffective work for quite some time now. The economist says that the activity of Kilimbetov's associates is well within the logic of the government's actions. This means that the system's change must begin from the fund's head. The hunger strike in the Bakay district of Almaty is supported by the residents of another district, Darkhan. The protesters demand to legitimize their land plots. The city authorities, however, took a principled stand and do not intend to comply with the ultimatum. The hunger-striking residents of the Almaty's district Bakay are supported by their neighbors from the nearby district Darkhan. On the morning of October 11th, they joined the protest action. Apparently, the hardship of the Bakay settlement is not the only similar case for the city. Darkhan residents say their land plots didn't make it to the district's master plan. I decided to join these people because I support them. It is pure chaos that the authorities are demolishing houses. In the meantime, two Bakay residents had to stop the hunger strike this past weekend due to their poor health condition. Ambulance doctors who monitor the situation are very concerned. The majority of the strikers are seniors and some of them suffer from diseases. In such condition, the rejection of food is strongly not advised. The condition of these people is deteriorating due to the hunger strike, while they decline going to the hospital and want to see their action to the end. We cannot do anything about it, like force them to take polls or take them to the hospital. The protesters say they will fight till the end. At the same time, they continue writing appeals to the city administration, prime minister and president. People demand to resolve the issue as soon as possible and legitimize the plots of 50 Bakay residents. In turn, the deputy city mayor Serik Sidumanov says the hunger strikers have nothing to demand according to the law. I'm sorry, but how else should we resolve an issue for the people whose claims are groundless? What if I want a spaceship? Should I start a hunger strike too? They can hunger strike all they want. At the same time, it appears that the strikers are subjected to pressure. The protesters say that anonymous officials of the Almaty's Turtsip administration promised them that each trip of the ambulance to the area will cost them $50. Nevertheless, people still intend to continue their action.